We now invite Mr. Vyomesh Joshi, Executive Vice President of the Imaging and Printing Group at HP, to share his thoughts. Under Vijay's leadership, IPG has grown revenue from $19 billion to $26 billion and doubled its operating profit to more than $4 billion. He is also a member of HP's Executive Council. Vyomesh Joshi.
So good afternoon, everybody. What I want to do is really talk about what's overall our global strategy for imaging and printing. And then I want to specifically talk about India as an opportunity, because I truly believe that India could be a tremendous growth engine for our imaging and printing business. So to start with, I want to really talk about what are the key trends that we see, and then talk about our strategy to grow the business. Now, let me put a context around where HP is going, and then build out, in context of HP's growth, how IPG is going to play a very important role for the growth. Now, if you look at the traditional world of client-server model for computing, we are going to the cloud. And for the cloud computing model, the important part is we need to make sure that we optimize the traditional environment. So HP, being #1 IT company in the world, we want to make sure that we help the customers to move from the traditional client-server model to the cloud-server model. The second key thing that we want to do is we want to really build this next-generation cloud architecture. And this cloud architecture is the core part that we also, in imaging and printing, are using to really transform the imaging and printing to the next level. The third important part of our strategy has been to really make sure that we enable seamless transformation, to the cloud. And the fourth one is connected world. If you think about mobility and the web, which has changed the way customers are accessing the content, creating the content, managing the content, securing the content, and then storing or printing anywhere, anytime, is what customers are looking for. So the value proposition that HP has is what we call seamless, secure, context-aware content creation to consumption value chain. Now, the way we think about printer is not just a printer, it's a web services platform which can print. It's a content consumption device. Just like a tablet, if you think about iPad or a touchpad as a content consumption device, you would think about our printer also as a content consumption device. So what I'm going to do now is to really take a step back, and from imaging and printing point of view, what are the trends we see, what contribution that we will have in terms of really solving the customer problems, and then how that will enable the growth that we want to see in India. Now, when we look at our market trends, we look at 4 key market trends. And I think Neeraj talked about the first one, the content explosion. If you think about customers today, they are creating more content than ever before. Blogging, YouTube phenomena, where people are creating their own videos. As a matter of fact, customers are spending more time on social networking site than even Google or Yahoo. People spend more time on Facebook worldwide than Google and Yahoo combined. I'm in India for the last 2 days, and I've been asking our employees, and I just asked a question, how many people are on Facebook? 70 to 80% of employees will raise their hands. It kind of amazed me that even Facebook penetration in India is very, very big. What it tells me is social networking, the creation of the content has completely changed. We believe that in next 3 years, content will go from 300 billion gigabytes to 3,000 billion gigabytes just in 3 years. Now, the great thing about that is even the printable content is also going to grow. Not at that rapid rate of 10x, but at least 3x. Every content created may not be printed. A lot of that will be viewed. But we absolutely believe that this content explosion is also going to help us on the print growth. The second key trend is about mobility and the web. What we mean by that is there are going to be more smartphones and tablets will be sold than PCs and notebooks. In Q4 of 2010, worldwide, it kind of a crossover happened. That is, more smartphones and tablets in 2011 will be sold than tablets. That number probably will go 3x in the next 3 years. Especially in countries like India, where I think that that trend is going to even go faster, because the PC penetration and the notebook penetration is not that high here, but the smartphone penetration is actually accelerating. So accessing the internet using the smartphone and tablets is going to be the key way customers are going to have access to the content. The other important part is the web is becoming the medium of communication for small and medium businesses. So in developed countries, yellow pages were the way small and medium businesses were communicating their value proposition, and then it shifted to the web. In countries like India, it will shift directly to the web, because the web page will become the way small and medium business will be marketing their capability. What that means is the way we were really looking at our business for many, many years, being printer connected to a PC, is not the way we have to think about that. The way we want to think about the printer is a web services platform which is connected to the cloud, and it can get all content from anywhere, anytime, including PC, and you'll be able to print anywhere, anytime, that customers will be able to have access to that content. This is a big deal. One of the key things that Neeraj talked about of e-print, but we decided that above a certain price point, every single printer will be connected to the web, it will be cloud aware, it will have an email address. So if you think about, if I'm somewhere and I'm on my smartphone, I got that content, I took a picture, I want to print it, I can just send that picture to the email of that printer, it goes to the cloud, and then print it. That's the power of really thinking about next generation architecture, how we want to really get that content and accessible anywhere, anytime. Very big deal for us. The third key trend is everything, the media type will go digital. So think about 10 years ago. Most of the pictures were taken with an analog camera, and you will go and print out 4 by 6. I'm sure my friend here is saying, yeah, right, we're going to take analog camera. All the cameras now are digital, including the cell phone, that where you'll be able to get a reasonable quality, with pictures. So just like what has happened to photos, every single media type will go digital. Books, magazines, newspapers, everything that what you see right now is going to go digital. Let me give you an example. Book publishing. 40% of the books are never read. What I mean by that, most of the book publishing, the book publisher will say, hey, I need to print 100,000 copies of that book. And most of them may not be a big seller. So those books which are printed will be will be printed. If it is bestseller, it will be sold. If it is not a bestseller, it will show up in some kind of a place where they will store them. And after certain time, they will get rid of that. 40% of the books are never read. What I mean by that, they'll be stored in some warehouse and thrown away. With digital, you can only print what you need. And that could change this whole equation. Let me give you an example. So we have a big book publisher in Paris. They decided to publish a book of the royal wedding. And from balcony to bookshop, that book was published in 4 days. So they basically published that book in 4 days. Think about in analog world, you have to prepare the plates, you have to do, the content has to be approved, you have to decide 100,000 copies you want to, they only published 5,000 books and was made it available right there. And the quality of this book, which is really as good as you could see it, in normal analog printing, is what we are talking about. So think about the book publishing, the publishing fresh content when you need it, what you need it, is what we are talking about. Actually, I'm going to pass it on as long as I get it back, okay? you guys can see what we are talking about. So just like photos, we are transforming how book publishing is happening. The third important part is same thing will happen to magazines. Same thing will happen with how customers are going to really get their news. And that's what we need to be thinking about. Most of the printed pages are analog, and they're printed on a big press. When things will go digital, you will be able to print what you need, where you need, when you need. And we'll talk specifically what the opportunity is. The picture in the bottom here is the web press. This is the press which prints those kind of books. And these press can print 25 to 50 million pages a month. So a home customer generally prints 100 pages a month. We're talking about 25 to 50 million pages a month. Very different kind of a print speeds. Now, the fourth important trend is everything will become a service and an experience. So think about the old world. The old world was a PC and a printer and the content. You use the PC application, Microsoft Word, Excel, and people will be able to print that. Now, the world is all that content from smartphones to tablets, everything is generated, goes to the web, and you'll be able to print in the home, in the office, with a retailer, with a print service provider. And now, people will provide print services. That's where the world is going. Just like in computing world, you had a PCA and then the application. Now, you have iPad and iPod and iPhone and iCloud, and how the whole architecture has changed. And it's all about the web services. Instead of the operating system being the platform, applications are the platform. It's not that what you have on your smartphone, is it Android or is it an iOS or a web OS? It's a Facebook. Or is it the Netflix? What kind of applications that you are driving is very important. So when we think about the imaging and printing, we're not really thinking about a printer connected to a PC. But we are thinking about saying this content explosion is happening, how customers can have access to that content anywhere, anytime. That's what we are thinking about. Okay? So the four key trends then drive the opportunity in terms of what opportunity we have in the addressable market. And that's a big market. That's a $292 billion market that we are looking at. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that market in terms of hardware and supplies, in terms of services, in terms of web services and software. That's how we're going to really look at our market. So let's start with the traditional hardware and supplies market. So here what we are talking about is the printing hardware, all the way from a home printer, an office printer, an inkjet printer, a laserjet printer, to this big web press that I talked about. That web press probably will sell for $2.5 million, just to give you some numbers. From 2,500 rupees a printer to $2.5 million. So that's the range that we are talking about. And a printer, as I said, in a home could be consuming cc's of ink versus gallons of ink, or liters and liters of ink, when we think about the web press. But that's $175 billion market. The services market. So the way we look at that is total pages printed in the world are 52 trillion. What I mean by that, pages on books, magazines, newspaper, everything, all over the world, there are 52 trillion pages printed every year. The interesting thing, people talk about paperless office. This number is actually going up because of the information explosion. The other important part is how much is digital. 90% of those pages are analog. The transformation that I talked about from photos to books, to magazines, to newspapers, still there's tremendous room here. And it will go digital, because the power of digital is, as I said, you print what you need and when you need. When you think about the books, just the example I gave you, apply that to every single aspect of the media type. Labels, labels will also go digital because you could put a identification code very unique. In the digital, every page could be different. So if I want to publish that book that I'm passing it on and make it, a copy for Neeraj, I could actually print on the top saying it's Neeraj's copy. Because, digital printing, you don't need to set up the plates. So that means that it will be different content could be printed and you could have personalization, customization. We truly believe that's the opportunity. As things go digital, that's what we want to really go after. Now, the services market is the way we define that. So as for example, for enterprise customer, they don't want to just buy hardware and supply. They said, who will take care of the help desk? Who will take care of, things about managing that printing environment? That's where big opportunity is, because customers are saying, we don't want to really manage. The IT department doesn't want to manage, imaging and printing. Can HP come and help us? Can HP come and help to reduce our carbon footprint? Because, we can really save a lot of energy. We can shut down imaging and printing during the weekends. We can print on both sides, the duplex. Can we buy new printers which are energy efficient so that we can reduce the overall carbon footprint? And so we not only provide the hardware and supply, but we also provide services on top of that. Now, if you talk to an enterprise customer, they spend on average 6% of their revenue in imaging and printing. 10% is in hardware and supplies, 15% is on services, but 75% of their spend is on their software, of where they create the content, they manage the content, they store the content, all the software. Think about a bank and think about a loan processing kind of a process. If I want to apply for a loan, how much paperwork I have to fill out, right? So you go and fill out a paperwork, and then they will digitize that. Then somebody will say, these things are not right, can I get more information? So they will send that, fax that back, paper again, and then people will refill that paper and refax it back. Somebody will approve it and then sign that and say, okay, refax that. So on average, in a loan, processing application, information moves from paper to information, the information back to paper 11 times. So if you can really simplify and really make that process very, unified, you could actually convert once from paper to information and then authenticate it, put a security layer, and then get approval process digitally. You will be able to save a lot of cost and time from the overall process. We think it is at 20% of cost and the time reduction that you could do. So the way we are thinking about is how can we look at the content in a different way and help to unify and simplify paper-based processes. That's a big opportunity for imaging and printing, because the way we think about is you could put smart devices and really figure out how we can build these services and software on top. Now, we're doing tremendous innovation in our core business. If you think about the e-print that I talked about, this year we will ship 20 million printers which are e-enabled. What I mean by that, they are cloud aware and connected to the web, having email address. And the beauty of these printers are not only they are connected to the PC, but they're also connected to the cloud, and it can have very interesting application that you could run, directly. I'm sure you will see, there are printers right here on the back here from inkjet, the LaserJet, including a big, large format printer. So right on the wall there that you could see. That's connected to the cloud. So think about the use case. I'm an architect, and there is a builder of an apartment complex. So the construction crew, and you have the people, who are going to really work in making sure that the drawings that you have for that building and the construction crew can get update without going and taking the physical document, the blueprints, back and forth. Essentially what you do is, you could scan and then email to the cloud, and that is connected to your construction site. They could look at it, mark it up, rescan it back to the cloud, and the architect can see it. The way the whole process of creating and managing, this whole process could be very, very easy, and that's why, we are not only building our inkjet and our laser jet, but even design jet, connected to the cloud and having, this email capability. So we absolutely believe that this core understanding of how to make cloud-aware, web-connected printers is going to be very crucial for us for innovation. Another thing is the services. We already have 3,000 enterprise customers, who actually, use imaging and printing services to reduce cost, reduce the carbon footprint globally. This is a big deal for us. Now, once we have these customers, we can go through and look at their paper-based processes, as I gave you the insight in terms of the invoicing process or loan processing by vertical, by financial services, healthcare. We look at all the places where paper is used. We can simplify them and help them to achieve cost reduction, improve the efficiency, and reduce the carbon footprint. Now, the web services is also a very important, opportunity for us. Think about Snapfish. So customers, who would like to actually build their own photo book. So what happens in the world that, you take pictures, you say you went to Singapore or Greece for your vacation. You took 1,000 pictures on your digital camera. You could go and develop those pictures, and generally people don't have time to put them into albums. So they show up into shoebox or somewhere into the closets. The way you could actually build a photo book, where you could go to Snapfish, put them into a photo book composition engine, build a photo book in 5 minutes, and you could get photo book at your home. We believe this is a big deal. Photo applications are actually booming in India. You could go back and look at all the graphic art stuff that we have shown there here. This is where you will be able to get a poster, you will be able to get a photo book, not just an image that 4x6 that we used to get from Kodak or Fuji. You will be able to really tell your story in a very effective way. This is just one example of web services. We are going to develop many web services with which customers will be able to enjoy the content. So if you think about what we are doing, is we have the on-ramp for the content, your tablets, your PCs, your notebooks, now even printers, your scanners, where you can take the content, digitize that content, put a metadata, store them in a place, authenticate, put a security layer, personalize it, customize it, and then you have the off-ramp. It could be a big web press to print the book that I'm showing you. It could be a photo book. It could be a document in your home. It could be a document in your office. You could go to a retail location and get your prints. So that's what we want to do, and all on cloud, so that you don't have to really have the infrastructure sitting there on your devices. That's where we are going, and we absolutely believe that HP is the only company which can really provide the on-ramp, the off-ramp, and the cloud in making that happen. Now, to do really this thing, the way we are looking at that are two key customer segments: consumer and micro businesses, and manage SMB and enterprise environment. For consumer and micro businesses, we believe the asset that we are building is what we are calling ePrint Center. So if you are a consumer, you buy an e-printer, then you go to an ePrint Center and register. You will get an email address of your printer, and you will also get access to various web services. Just like what you do when you go buy a iPod or iPhone or iPad, right? You go to iTunes, register, and then you could really get all your music services or whatever the services you have. Same thing here. You go to ePrint Center, just like our iTunes. And now you will register, you get your email address. You will be able to then say, these are the services that I can have. In future, you will have simple applications with which you will be able to do your coloring book, printing. You will be able to get content on a scheduled delivery point of view. Lot of things that you will be able to do on your ePrint Center. That is the place where you go to manage your printing. And then you will get all that web services that with which you will be able to print. And we'll show you some very specific examples. Ajay is going to talk about that. So that's one part of the assets that we are building. The ePrint Center, all web-connected, cloud-aware, printers, and the cloud architecture with which you will be able to make this thing happen. We also have done a lot of work where you will be able to use, AirPrint. Let me give an example. So when iPad was introduced, there was no printing functionality. So customers complained to Apple saying, that's not really very useful if you don't have a printing functionality. So Apple and HP worked together, and we built AirPrint, which is the capability where you could discover when you have an e-printer. So if you have your iPod or iPad or iPhone, you'll be able to discover this wireless printer, and you'll be able to print directly. So you could have a direct printing capability or through the cloud. Same thing when Google, Chrome operating system is introduced, they have a Google Cloud printing. Same thing will be now, that capability with all our e-printers is possible. So the way we think about is you could have any smartphone. You could have a Nokia smartphone, or you could have WebOS touchpad, or any device. You don't need a driver in this environment. You essentially either use a direct printing with a wireless, or you could send it to your email address of the printer and print it. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is in managed environment. I gave the example of the loan processing. What we want to do is we want to build solutions and software on top of our printing capability. This is very important to us because we can, again, transform all the paper-based processes in managed assembly and enterprise environment. The third asset that we are building is about the global print ecosystem. What I mean by that is if you want to publish a book that I'm showing you, you could have print service provider having that capability so that you will be able to basically say, hey, I want to publish this book. In analog world, it is impossible because they will ask you minimum 100,000 copies. They will ask you, do you have a real print guy who could help you to do that? We can make this thing happen, because you could just work with a print service provider and he can publish your content. And the fourth important asset that we are building is our go-to-market asset. All these four key things are very important for us. So if you think about it, your on-ramp, you create and digitize the content, authenticate that, store that, and then print. That's what we are talking about. Now, I absolutely believe India is a tremendous opportunity. If you look at the four key trends I talked about, I want to give you some specifics about India. Actually, content explosion will be even faster in India because the base is smaller. We think it's going to be growing even 2x the worldwide content growth. We believe that mobility, and as I said, in India, smartphones are actually going to lead the way. It's going to be a big way where content is created and then distributed. We believe the analog to digital conversion is also going to accelerate because we truly believe that the print growth that we see in digital is like 20%. And when we think about services, actually the managed print services point of view, India is the highest growth that we are seeing. What it means, by 2014, it's 120 billion pages will be printed opportunity that we have. That really sets up in terms of India being a phenomenal growth engine for imaging and printing.